pleasure to be with you guys. My name is Jonathan Heron, and the name of this presentation is Holy Shift! You got to say it like that. How to quickly reach people far from God. And some of this material will be super helpful and beneficial to you. Some of this material you're going to roll your eyes and say, not for us. And that's totally okay. I'm not here today to say this is the way it should be done or this is the perfect way. I'm just here to say this is our story, and if there's anything that's helpful to you, please take it, run with it, steal it. You got two eyes, plagiarize. But if there's stuff that doesn't fit you and fit your context, you don't have to do it. And so there's a handout. I got some material to walk you through, and then we'll do a Q&A, and you can ask anything during the Q&A about the material, about our church, about me, anything you want to know. It's no holds barred. My goal is just to serve you as you are on the front lines of ministry. You guys are the New York Yankees plowing through. Well, I guess it's the Astros is the big team right now, right? Or if you're an NBA guy like me, you are the Cavs because we cheer for winners. It got real quiet in here all of a sudden. Kind of feel uncomfortable. Golden State, where on Saturday night, in the final 60 seconds of the game, both Steph Curry and Kevin Durant were ejected from the game and they lost. Bunch of winners. I'm a LeBron James guy. I will fight over that, all right? So we got a handout so you can jot down notes. Here's where you can find us online. Social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook is @followjon, @followjon. I'd love to become friends with you. Lots of resources. We're filming this, and we'll put this video online for free later this week at jonathanheron.com. And then if you want to peek in on what we're doing over in the High Five states, it's lifechurchmichigan.com. And all the material, if you are digging it and wanting more, there's books for sale later. It's called Holy Shift. Forward by Perry Noble. We'll have those available in the back, cash, check, or if you're like me and don't carry those, you can charge it. So there you go. And everything goes to church planting. We don't make any money off this stuff. So there we go. Holy Shift. So let me kind of share who I am, because you're probably going, who is this guy? What's going on? We're going to get these Superfly shoes. So these are Kohl's clearance right there. Listen, I grew up, I'm a pastor's kid. I grew up in the Midwest, in Iowa, the Quad Cities. Anybody from Iowa? Good. Yes. Very good. Because all we've got is cornfields, cows, and pigs. It's pretty boring. Grew up in a very small, traditional country church. My dad was the pastor. I grew up Presbyterian, so peace be with you. Interesting fact, if you take the letters in Presbyterian and rearrange them, it spells Britney Spears. So there you go. Our idea of youth group was going bowling once every 3 months, and so by the time I graduated from high school, I kind of graduated from my faith. As many of you know those stories from your congregations, wanted nothing to do with the hypocrisy, the judgment of church world, which, by the way, you need to get a copy of today's USA Today. This is God's timing. On the front page, below the fold, is a front page story about the state of evangelicalism in America. It is a headline that compares 50 years ago with the Reverend Billy Graham to today's church environment that they are saying is headed by Judge Roy Moore of Alabama. And this story bleeds into the second page, and it's astonishing. This right here sums up the whole material for Holy Shift. This is how people in your community see your church. That 50, 60 years ago, everybody loves Billy Graham, good guy. That's the story. Gives props to Billy Graham, but it says that in 2017, the modern church is highly politicized, it is inward focused, and in the eyes of our communities, it is hateful. Okay, we're not in a postmodern culture. We're in a post-Christian culture. And everything that happens in Britain bleeds over to America 20 years later. So you think the Beatles, the British invasion, and they came over to America. You see what's happening in England. Empty cathedrals, empty pews in these beautiful church buildings. That's happening now here in America. And you're going to continue to see an accelerated rate of churches closing their doors in North America over the next 20 years. Just as you're seeing shopping malls, is that 20% of all shopping malls will be shut down in 5 years. And I believe that same statistic applies to the American church. That's not being alarmist. I can drive through, I lead a church that's in Saginaw. We just opened a campus in Midland. I can drive through Saginaw and see empty church building, empty church building, empty church. That's 6 months ago we're open. And that's not to scare you. That should break your heart, because the local church is the hope of the world. We have the greatest message. You're talking about a generation, Gen X, millennial, that is hugely connected on social media, yet the suicide rate is jetting up. The #1 show on Netflix, 13 Reasons Why, glorifies teen suicide. There's hopelessness. There's heartache. And this generation wants to be part of something bigger than themselves. That's why you see the hashtag #MeToo skyrocketing around. That's why when things like pray for Las Vegas, pray for Houston, people want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They're okay with prayer. This is the most spiritually attuned generation since the days of Billy Graham, yet the local church is not where millennials are flocking to. They're flocking to comedy clubs. They're flocking to online venues like ComedyCentral.com, SideSplitter.com. And so the question is, how do we take the unchanging message of Jesus and, like a missionary, communicate it in the 21st century? And so I'm a Gen Xer, and when I graduated from high school in the 90s, I left church world. I wanted to go to the nearest big city I could get to, and that was Chicago. So I love Chicago. I lived here for 4 years. I'm a graduate of Columbia College in the South Loop, where I studied theater. And immediately I auditioned for and got into Second City. You guys have heard of Second City? Second City is the Mecca, birthplace of improvisational comedy. Started in 1959 with Alan Arkin, Joan Rivers, Avery Schreiber. And it's where modern satire originated. And so you think of all the TV shows, all the movies you enjoy that make you laugh, like Ghostbusters, or The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Saturday Night Live. All those men and women, almost nearly 100%, can trace their roots back to Second City. Because Second City trains young men and women how to think differently, how to absorb lots of information very quickly and spit it out in a way that makes sense. Sort of like pastors. Hello. And so I studied there, I worked there. I had the fortune of being under the teaching of a then unknown Tina Fey. And so the long story short, my journey was I was not going to church, wasn't interested, wanted to be in the comedy scene. My trajectory was SNL. And 20 years ago this December, because I'm getting old, I actually was partying with Chris Farley 2 nights before he died. And so when you're a 20-something who is seeking comedy, seeking to be famous and rich, and you're hanging out with the guy who epitomized, I mean, this is Tommy Boy, this is the guy who's hosting SNL, and 2 days later, his body's found in the John Hancock building. That shook up the improv comedy world in December of '97, and it grabbed me. A couple weeks later, 2 of my close friends from high school died in a freak car accident on an icy road in Iowa. And so that grabs your heart, that grabs your attention, and it set me on this existential journey of, well, what do I believe in? You know, I was raised in the church, my dad's a pastor, I was confirmed, but wasn't living the life. You know, my Bible had an inch of dust on it. And I'm in the theater world where all of my friends have different belief systems. My friends were Muslim, Buddhist, gay, straight, Christian, agnostic, atheist, Jewish. And so this is in the days before Google, before the internet. So I went to the library because I'm like, what happens when you die? Where do we go? And I just started reading all the major books on different religions and faith systems. So I read the Quran, I read the Book of Mormon, the Jehovah's Witnesses really wanted to talk to me. And so I read everything, and you know this, you guys are smart, you're church leaders, but you know that if you're intellectually honest, all different religions and faith systems do not lead to the same place. You can Google it today. I mean, we all love to see the bumper sticker on the car ahead of us that says coexist. And it has all the symbols of the different faith traditions. But if we're intellectually honest and do our homework, all these faith systems go in different directions. They do not lead to the same destination. So as a 20-something without Google, I said, well, which one is true? Which one of these is real, historically, scientifically, archaeologically verifiable? And I ended up taking my Bible that I hadn't opened in years. And I read that if you want the earliest written account of the gospel, you don't look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The seminarians in the room know that the earliest written historical account of Jesus of Nazareth is found in 1 Corinthians 15. The Apostle Paul was the first man to put pen to parchment and tell the story of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so I dived into 1 Corinthians 15, and I was immediately grabbed hold in verse 3 when Paul says, now let me remind you of what was first presented to you, that Jesus died for our sins. And everybody agrees that Jesus really did exist, that Jesus really did die on a Roman cross. Josephus, history records, yes, this guy is not a legend, you know this, that he really did die. He was buried. And people that say, oh, he just kind of passed out, or he was on shrooms, man. You and I know the Jewish burial customs would have crushed his body with over 100 pounds of linens and spices, so he was dead. And then Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15 that on the third day he rose from the dead. And that he revealed himself to Peter, who had just run and, cut and run. He revealed himself to the disciples, and then, this was the clincher for me, he revealed himself to James, his brother. And when your brother worships you as God, wow, newsflash, that's huge. And then he showed himself to over 500 eyewitnesses at one time. And that's what grabbed me, because scientifically you cannot show a single case of mass hallucination among 500 people in one place. Right. It's never been provable scientifically. And so 1 Corinthians 15 grabbed me, and the clincher was when Paul says, if the resurrection hasn't happened, if Jesus is still dead, then this whole thing's a joke. I loved it. Paul was so honest, and that's what millennials want. They just want us to be honest. And he lays it out. He says, if Jesus is in the grave, then this whole thing is a pyramid scheme. We should pack it up. I'm a charlatan. Let's go join the mosque down the street. Because our faith rises or falls on the veracity of the resurrection of Jesus. And so I loved that linchpin of 1 Corinthians 15. And then Paul goes on to say, but he has been raised from the dead. And so once you wrap your mind around the historical reliability of Jesus rising from the dead and then saying, hey, I did this by my own power, I'm God. When a guy shows up, declares himself to be God, and can prove it by rising from the dead, you want to get on that team. You want to wear that team jersey because that guy can mess you up. And so from that point on, it just grabbed me. It ignited a fire. Just like in Jeremiah. Jeremiah says, there's a fire in my bones. I can't help but declare the awesomeness of God. And so I said, that's what I want to do. I said, I don't want to be a pastor. Those guys are boring. All right? I don't want to be in church world because that's a bunch of judgmental, hypocrite haters. But I said, I want to tell people about Jesus. And specifically in the theater world where so many people are living in darkness and hopelessness. I was like, how can I share about Jesus without having to go into the church? So I married my high school sweetheart. I married up. We finished college. And as we were finishing up college, I knew I was not going to go into theater and comedy. I finished up at Second City, graduated there. My wife got her pre-med biology degree. She didn't want to work on cadavers. It's a true story. She's in downtown Chicago. This is before cell phones. And we were dirt poor. We didn't have a car, so we walked everywhere. She was walking around downtown Chicago. She needed to go to the bathroom. and she didn't know where to go. You can't just walk into gas stations in Chicago. You know how the signs are like, no public restrooms, you know? So she's walking around, and she sees this place. We'd never heard of this place. Moody Bible Institute. She goes, oh, they're Christians. I can use their bathroom. It's a true story. My wife, as a young 20-something, wanders into Moody Bible Institute, uses the restroom, and she goes, well, since I'm here, I probably should, at least walk. They're having a job fair or something. I should walk around and be polite, since I just used the lavatory. And so she walked into, I don't know if it was a gymnasium. I've never been there. And she saw that they had graduate schools advertising about graduate programs. And as she's perusing the material, she sees materials for Ashland Theological Seminary, a non-denominational seminary in Ashland, Ohio. She gets to talking to them, and by the time she comes home, she goes, I've been called into ministry because of the bathroom. And I'm like, what cult did you just join? She's like, I'm going to pursue my master's degree in Ashland. Let's go, let's do this. And so I was like, well, my wife's not going to be smarter than me, so I better go to seminary too. And that's how I got called into ministry. So we moved to Ohio, to Northeast Ohio. That's why I'm a LeBron James fan. Unapologetic about cheering for winners, people. All right? We're going to get it this year. Just you watch. Listen, I'm not a prophet. I'm not a son of a prophet. I work for a nonprofit organization. But Cavs are in it to win it, okay? So I moved to Northeast Ohio, and that's where I pursued my master's. My wife got her master's in clinical counseling, so she can tell me what's wrong with me. Wonderful. And we jumped into youth ministry. We went to the local church. We were the young 20-something couple with no kids. So the senior pastor said, hey, you're going to be youth sponsors. And I'd never been in a thriving youth ministry before, and so I got sucked into this. I'm like, wow, you can just hang out and have fun and talk about Jesus. Sign me up. And so in the fall of 2000, I jumped into my first full-time ministry role as a youth minister, and been in full-time ministry for the past 17 years. Within 5 or 6 years, I ended up at a church called New Spring Church in Anderson, South Carolina. I was on the executive team directly under Perry Noble. I was their youth pastor. And Perry's the guy who sat me down and said, John, you've been wired with comedy in your background and with theology. He said, you need to go do youth ministry for adults. He said, let me tell you about church planting. And I'd never heard of it. I worked at a church plant. New Spring started in the year 2000. Within 5 years, had about 5,000 people. Now they're like 20, 30,000. I don't know. It's crazy. And they just sneeze and people turn to Christ. And so I was sent out to plant a church in Ohio because that's where we had friends. That's where we were most comfortable. And so we planted our first church in the shadow of Kent State University in the fall of 2006. And ran that for about 3 years, and then merged with another church. So I understand failure. In fact, one of the mantras for Facebook is, I'm just kind of riffing now. This isn't even on your handout, but this is really good. The mantra at Facebook is 2 words: fail harder. This is what Mark Zuckerberg, who will probably be our president in 20 years, and I'm not joking, the guy who wants to be president. But he is always telling his employees, take bigger risks. Go for it. Fail harder. You won't learn if you don't try. Tina Fey once said, don't be the fat kid sitting at the top of the water slide saying, should I, should I, should I? Just go for it. Cannonball. Make a splash. And if you fail, have the humility to go, well, what did I learn? Another phrase that we use, let me grab a black marker. We use this all the time at our church plant. Is we say that everything we do is an experiment. So whenever we try something new at Life Church, and I'm the lead pastor, I'm the founding pastor, I always couch it with, hey guys, let's try something. We're going to go on an adventure together, and this is an experiment, and if it works, we're going to celebrate what God does through us, in us, and for His kingdom. And if we fail, we'll scrap it. We'll shoot that dead horse and move on to something else. So like we tried doing Sunday night services 2 years ago. And it was successful in attracting other church people. And we were running 100, 120 on Sunday nights, and we killed it. Because we don't have a vision to reach people who are already found. We want to reach people far from God. And so it was no problem to say, we tried an experiment. It doesn't match our vision and DNA, so we're going to kill it. And there was zero blowback, zero pushback. So in Ohio, we merged. It was a successful merger, but I said, I'm done with church planting. It's so unpredictable. I don't like fundraising. I like to eat something beyond rice-a-roni. And so ended up taking a senior pastor role in Michigan. And we're the high five state. This is the state of Michigan. And we were here in the Thumb, which is like redneck country. It's like, cousins are married together, missing some teeth. And went to a 125-year-old church that just built a new, huge expansion, town of 5,000 people. They said, we want you to come and reach the young people. And I came in as a denominational church, and I said, you don't want to hire me. Because I said, we will reach young people. You're going to see people come to Christ. But we're going to tick off all the seasoned citizens. The long, die-hard Christians who are wonderful, they will not understand, and you will run me out of town. I said, no, come on in. So uprooted the family, moved to Michigan, had a great 2-year run where the church grew from 350 to over 700. We baptized, I think, like 200 people. People were throwing out the R word in our community, and it was just remarkable what God did. But then at the 2-year marker, and you know the stats, it's right around 2 years that the old timers get edgy. What do they do when everything's changing? And I went to have back surgery. Just hired an executive pastor to run things while I was on bed rest for 2 months. And while I was on bed rest, this executive pastor and the 4-person volunteer board hijacked the church. And it's one of those horror stories that you hear about. I lived it, where they said, don't come back. And sign this paper and say that you resigned, but really I was fired. And it was horrible. We had just bought a house in a horrible economy in the Thumb where nobody's buying properties. My son was 5 days away from his first day of kindergarten. Suddenly I was unemployed, no health insurance, still recovering from back surgery, and they were spreading gossip, lies, and rumors on Facebook and trashing my reputation. So I ended up hustling, needed a job, and nobody would hire me. I was overqualified. This is cheaper than therapy. That's why I'm sharing this. So I'm sharing this because I can talk about our successes. All right, Converge will say at Life Church is a success, right? Every success you see is just a leader who's standing on a mountain of failures. Like, you got to fail hard and keep plowing forward. That's why Paul kept saying to Timothy, don't stop, can't stop, won't stop, keep going. You only see the good stuff on social media. All right? If you go to my social media, you'll see us, we cheer for people getting baptized. We share numbers because numbers do not lie. Statistics don't have emotions. And so we celebrate. We are all about the numbers because the book of Acts is all about the numbers. We got a book in the Bible called the book of Numbers because God wants to see more people in the kingdom, and leaders define the win. And so we say, wow, look what God did. 24 people got baptized. We're at 48 for the year. That's awesome. That's what Jesus is doing. And we celebrate that on social media, but you will not see me posting, dude, my whole staff last year tried to hijack our church, and now they're starting another church in our town in February, true story. And that's the heartache of the pastor. You don't see Stephen Furtick sharing about the worship leaders that tried to take over the church. Because that's not for public consumption. We want to use our social media presence to woo and to win the lost. And millennials want to be part of something bigger than themselves that's moving forward, and it should be the local church. But I digress. I ended up working at Family Video. I was hustling to get a job. I'm like, I got a kid, I got to get health insurance, so I was the guy that was renting the videos, and people from my church who had been told that I had, gone to a bigger church and had resigned, were like, why is Pastor John, giving me a copy of Bridesmaids? And I'm like, why are you watching Bridesmaids? That's so, and I was, ministry. My friend Perry Noble is walking through this right now. If you want to see a man who's broken and who is trying desperately to own his mistakes and walk with Jesus, start following Perry Noble online. He was at our church a month ago. I know the whole story. And that guy, God's going to do something awesome in his second act, but he's still in process. And so that's where I was in the fall of 2011. My wife and I were told that we were rejected. We shouldn't be in ministry. We really were broken people. And some of my folks in the church, they said, you should consider starting a church. Do it as far away as possible. Like, we don't want to be sheep stealers. And by God's grace, Life Church is not a sheep-stealing church. I can say that with integrity. We went an hour away. And people in the thumb will not drive to Saginaw because they think Saginaw's scary. And so in the fall of 2011, I just was kind of fumbling around and started sending in, stuff to different denominations, just trying to gain any traction. And Southern Baptist wouldn't talk to me. Missionary Church wouldn't talk to me. CNMA wouldn't talk to me. Because they would contact the church that we had just been thrown out of. And they were like, oh no, these people are evil and wicked. And I'm like, boy, we're stuck. And somehow I got connected to Norm Byers, who's the head of church planning for Michigan. And before I met with Norm, I had emailed the brother of Erwin McManus. He's one of my favorite authors. Alex McManus, who was at Kensington Church in downtown Detroit. And I asked if I could have coffee with him. So I'm like, you're related to Erwin, and he's a sharp guy, and I just want to learn, how can I start a church in this area? So I met with Alex at coffee, and he invited a friend to sit with him I'd never met before named Jeff Forrester, who's the pastor of Heritage Church, a converged church, which is one of the fastest growing churches in America. So I sit down and have coffee with Alex McManus. The conversation went nowhere. And Jeff just was silent during the whole coffee. If you've ever met Jeff, I think he's on the board of overseers for Converge, right? And after we had coffee, and this was when I was at my lowest point, Jeff goes, hey, let me go buy you lunch. One of the best things you can do to advance God's kingdom is find that potential ministry leader in your church, in your community, and go buy them lunch. And give them a safe ear just to listen. You don't have to give them advice, just listen. So I went out and ate Thai food, which I hate, with Jeff, but I needed a friend. And Jeff said, come to our church. It was an hour-and-a-half drive, but he said, you can come, heal, be anonymous. We're not going to make you serve, just come and heal. And so for a year, my wife and I and our little 5-year-old would get in the car, drive an hour-and-a-half to Heritage Church to worship, and then drive an hour-and-a-half back. And that was one of the best things that Converge ever did for us. So 2 weeks later, I went to meet with Norm Byers, and he walks into this meeting with my wife and I. He's meeting us for the first time. He goes, hey, I invited a friend. In walks Jeff Forrester. He laughs because he didn't know he was walking this meeting. I laughed because I just met this guy. We sit down, share our story. We're like, we want to start this church at Easter. We're going to do this, da-da-da-da-da. And Jeff and Norm go, well, number one, you should plant a church. But number two, you need to take a year off and just heal. And that was one of the best things Converge did, is they walked alongside us. They provided counseling for my wife and I. We went through church planning assessment here in Chicago in May of 2012, jumped through all the hoops and went through the whole process. And they do a 360 evaluation. They bring in a Fortune 500 psychologist to make sure you're not crazy. And then, to make sure that there was integrity, they asked if they could meet with the church that had thrown us out. And we were scared because we thought, oh, this is going to be it, or they're not going to like us. So they met with the church, and it was a healing experience because Jeff and Norm sat down and said, you guys didn't do anything wrong. Here's where the church screwed up. And that was so reassuring to us because we thought we were these evil people. So long story short, we started doing informational meetings. Once we gathered up some money, we rented the biggest place we could find, which was the Dow Event Center in downtown Saginaw. We put all our money into advertising just to gather a crowd. We rented a band. And once a month, when we had the money, we would just do a worship service. And our church only existed on the web. That was it. We bought the website, lifechurchmichigan.com. And we were a ghost church. And we just kind of would disappear. And finally, we were like, we got to do something. And so in March of 2013, we scraped together some money to hire a worship guy from Florida. I didn't receive a salary at all. My wife was working full time. I was stay-at-home dad. We just adopted our baby girl. And we launched weekly services. All the money went to rental, to the worship guy, and to advertising. And by God's grace, He's done something with that mess and made it His message. So 3 years ago, right now, this week, we were averaging 64 people on Sundays. This past Sunday, we were right around 600 at 2 locations, and that's a God thing. Our approach is to use principles of comedy. If we can get people laughing, they'll be more open to the gospel. Because guys walk into our church, they got their arms crossed, force fields up. But if you can get them to laugh, they'll lean in and be open. So there's 3 things you can write down on your handouts. And these are the 3 big ideas from the book, Holy Shift. The first big idea is this. As church leaders, this is not anything deep or brilliant by any means, but I want to give you permission to think funny. Think funny. Jesus had a sense of humor. You see him being really sarcastic. He refers to King Herod as that sly fox. You see a lot of sarcasm in the Bible from Elijah. 1 Kings 18, Mount Carmel. They're going against the prophets of Baal versus the one true God. And Elijah is sitting there. He's heckling the prophets of Baal. Where's your tower of fire? Maybe your God's on the potty, right? I love that. And they can't get the fire to happen, so then he says to the people, okay, we're going to bring down fire from heaven, but just to show that this isn't David Blaine, this isn't David Copperfield, I want you to bring your jugs of water, pour it on the fire before I call down the fire. So he does an altar call, they bring some jugs of water, they pour it out. He says, no, some of you are holding back. So second time he says, bring your water forward. They pour it out. Elijah looks at them with boldness, calcium in the spine. He says, no, you didn't hear me. I want you to sacrifice and bring the water forward. I'm giving you a message for tithing right now. And so the third time, they bring the water from the back, they pour it out, he prays, the fire comes down from heaven. The miracle is recorded in 1 Kings 18, but here's the deal. I don't think that the true miracle was fire being called down from heaven. Now, before you throw stones, what was happening in 1 Kings 18 historically? They were in the middle of a 3.5-year drought. And so when the prophet says, bring the water, what is it that is most valuable to you? Water. See, this is a whole message on generosity and tithing and sacrifice. 3 times he says to the people, you didn't hear me. We're in this together. Let's sacrifice. Where did the water come from, guys? I've been to Mount Carmel. Geographically, nothing has changed in 3,000 plus years. There is no body of water near Mount Carmel. Where did they get the water? Well, it says earlier in 1 Kings 18 that the king of Israel told all of Israel to come to Mount Carmel. And they didn't have cars, so they were trekking on foot. So they brought ancient jars full of water. If you have water, you have life. They come with their big jars, and he says, pour this out. Trust God with what will keep you alive and see what he might do. And that's where the water came from their sacrifices. And then what does the prophet do? He goes up and he prays 7 times. And then finally, they see a cloud in the distance, and the drought is broken, and the water comes. And so what we get from the 1 Kings 18 story for preachers is that it is easier to bring the fire than to bring the rain. It is so easy for you and I to get in the pulpit and to yell at the culture, to get angry like Roy Moore, who's on the front page of USA Today, becoming the new face of evangelical Christianity. According to USA Today, he's taking the mantle from Billy Graham. That should make you sick. We can bring the fire and condemn and say, you're do. People need rain. They're dehydrated. Millennials and Gen Xers are thirsty for hope. Sometimes people will say, Pastor, you just get up there and give them hell. I'm not going to give them hell. They've been through hell here to give them hope and to communicate the unchanging message of Jesus in changing methods, just like St. Patrick, just like William Borden, just like Billy Graham, who was condemned in his day for using a microphone and radio to amplify his message. And so what I'm arguing is that today's church leaders need a holy shift. We need less John MacArthur, more Jon Stewart. We need less cathedral, more comedy club. I'm not saying compromise scripture. I'm a sola scriptura guy, but I'm not solo scriptura. So I believe all truth is God's truth, and if there's truth from comedy world that we can use in our communication style, you got two eyes, plagiarize, steal it, rip it, because there's only two professions in our culture that every week have to create new material from scratch, stand behind a microphone in front of an audience by themselves and deliver it. Comedians and pastors. And so I'm here to tell you that there's so much you can learn from comedy if you'll think funny, if you'll think humor over hammer. Our churches do not need you to bring down the hammer. You are not for. They are dehydrated. They need water. They need humor. And if you get your people laughing, or if you use some of the tech, you don't have to be a comedian. You don't have to be funny. But if you'll be honest and authentic, that's where improv goes. In Second City, one of the rules of improv is don't try to be funny. Just be in the moment. And if you can take all that sermon prep, all that material, and then set it aside and just be yourself. That's what millennials will cling to. They're looking for authenticity. Why do you think Donald Trump got elected president? Because he was tapping into the fears and the hopes of average Americans. We have the message that speaks towards people's fears and towards people's hopes, and his name is Jesus. And if you will be authentic, be real, be in the moment, that's where comedy comes from. One of the best things you can do is go on Netflix or go on YouTube and just start watching good comedians to see their delivery style, to see how they formulate stories. On Netflix, there's a brand new documentary that you can watch with children in the room and you won't be embarrassed. It's Jerry Before Seinfeld. It just came out a month ago. And what you do is you sit there, pop your popcorn, have a cheap date night, and you're going to learn from the master how to formulate stories. Because people think in stories. A free podcast that you should be subscribing to right now is Story Brand with Donald Miller. He just released the book Story Brand last week. Amazing! The human brain is created by God to think in story. The Bible is a collection of stories. People go to church for 30 minutes, they tune out in the first 5 minutes of your sermon because you're giving exegetical truths. Jesus didn't teach line-by-line scripture. He told stories. Why is it people will tune out within 5 minutes during a sermon, but they'll tune in for a 120-minute movie, Justice League? Because Justice League and the Avengers are telling a story. And if you get the Story Brand, free resources, if you start to watch Jerry Seinfeld, another comedian you should watch. It's filthy as heck, but you'll learn a lot. Is Bill Burr. He has 2 comedy specials on Netflix. Not safe for children. He's going to drop the F-bomb. He's going to offend you. But he's brilliant at telling stories. Watch him once. After you're done being offended and righteous, go back and watch it a second time. And watch how he formulates stories. Because that's how you're going to communicate eternal truth. You need to watch TED Talks. In fact, there's a great book called Talk Like TED. And the author describes how you formulate a 17-minute message that your congregation will remember, internalize, and that will lead towards life change. And so Talk Like TED is a fantastic book. Leaders are learners. Leaders are readers. If you're not reading, you're not leading. So you want to think funny. Number 2, you want to grab the mic. So in comedy, There's no time for hesitation. There's no time for second guessing. The audience is there waiting. They want to laugh. They want to engage. They want to go forward in an experience with you. You got to seize the microphone. You got to, in Saturday Night Live, they always they create new material every week. They always say it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be, ready to go Saturday. You're never going to have the perfect sermon. You're never going to have the perfect children's experience. You just got to run with it. Because the audience is waiting. And every Sunday is strategic. You get 51, 52 Sundays a year. Don't sacrifice a Sunday with mediocrity. You need to bring it on Sundays. You got to grab the microphone. Bill Murray used to say, you got to be completely unafraid to go up there and die. John Wesley, who was the original multi-site pastor, he would jump on horses and do circuit rides. That's what we're doing at Life Church. So we've got Saginaw location. We just started a Midland location because we're crazy. And I preach live at both locations. Our band leads worship live at both locations. They are 30 minutes apart. So the band starts at 9:15 in Midland. They do the worship set. Then they hop in a car and jet to Saginaw while I preach. And then as soon as I'm done preaching, I hop in a car, jet to Saginaw, where the service has already started at 10:30. And they're on the final song, and I just walk right up and I start preaching. It's a little bit of a time warp, right? But that's what John Wesley did. And John Wesley would have thousands of people coming. And they'd say, John Wesley, how do you get all these people to show up before the internet? And he said, I just go up and set myself on fire. And people come from miles around to watch a man on fire. That's what you see with comedians. They're not, tiptoeing, I don't want to offend people. You're going to offend people in your church. You have to decide who you're willing to offend. You can either offend the church people, the found people, or you can offend the unchurched, the lost. You have to define who you're trying to reach. Someone will leave your church. John chapter 6, verse 66. You know it's a bad verse when it's 666. John 6:66 says that people left Jesus. If they walked away from Jesus, you're going to have haters that walk out of your church. You get to decide who you're willing to walk out of your church. And so at Life Church, from day one, we said we are not doing church for the already convinced. Our church exists for them. The thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are going to hell. Because, listen, Converge has a lot of different styles, but we can agree on the theology that Jesus is God, the Bible is true, hell is hot, forever's a long time. And so I don't know about you, but our vision at Life Church is to reach the lost at any cost. And you can steal that. Because that comes from Luke chapter 19, verse 10, when Jesus said, the Son of Man has come to seek and to save the lost. And if someone is lost and alone and groping in darkness, then the cost to reach them is of no consequence. That's a sound bite from this coming Sunday's message. You have to define the vision, define the win, because comedians define the win. It's how many laughs they can get. Your win is how many souls can you save? How many people can you want to make heaven crowded. And so if you can steal some ideas from comedy clubs or from Second City, then do it. The number one rule of comedy is to start with a yes. All comedy starts with agreement. They don't have time for disagreement and disunity because there's an audience waiting and crickets will kill you. So you start with a yes, whether it's in the writer's room at Saturday Night Live or improvisation on the stage, creating material on the spot. Comedy comes from agreement. Del Close, one of the originators of improvisation, said that agreement is funny. Mick Napier, one of the directors of Second City today, I trained under Mick Napier, said, declare what you want and fearlessly pursue it. As a leader in the Church of Jesus Christ, listen, you should never apologize for the Great Commission. see our churches growing. Read the book of Acts. It's normal for a church to go from 120 to 3,000 in one day. All right? We want to reach more people far from God. And so there has to be a holy shift, and it starts with a yes. The second rule of improvisation is yes and. To amplify what you're doing. So if something is working in your church, pour your time, talents, and treasures into funding it. If something is not working and it's sideways energy, you got to be the man or the woman who walks in and boldly kills it. Because it's killing your church. If you've got an Awana program that's got 17 kids showing up on Wednesday night, I'm going to be the one to tell you it's time to kill it. It's a waste of your time and your resources. If you've got Sunday school and it's working and it's booming and people are coming to Christ and people are getting baptized, fund that. But if it's not, kill that dead horse. All right, there's a difference between tradition and traditionalism. Tradition, this is in the book. Tradition is the living faith of dead saints. So we honor tradition. Traditionalism is the dead faith of living saints. Don't just do it because you've always done it. The book of Acts, they didn't have a blueprint. They had to start with the yes. Okay, God's given us Himself, the Holy Spirit. So let's go. You know what they never prayed for in the book of Acts? Revival. You don't see in the Bible people praying for revival. You know what they prayed for in the book of Acts? Acts chapter 2, Acts chapter 4, Acts chapter 8. They prayed for boldness. That should be the prayer you're teaching your board and your teams. Pray for boldness. God has already given you the Holy Spirit. The same breath that spoke into Adam and brought him life. And then in John chapter 21, Jesus breathed the Holy Spirit on the disciples. He said, as the Father has sent me, so I send you. Pray for boldness. Take action. Start with a yes. Yes, and amplify it. We go into deeper detail in the book, but I got to keep moving. No is a killer for your organization. No is not funny. If you say no on stage, it kills the action. The audience gets uncomfortable. If you're in a board meeting and you have somebody who keeps saying no, 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 they need to be removed from your board. Because they are trying to short circuit a movement of God. The worst thing that can happen in your church or in comedy is somebody who says, no, but we've always done it this way. No, but we've always given to that mission organization. Well, they're not reaching people for the kingdom and they're sucking our money dry. We need to reappropriate the fund. No, but, listen, nobody cares about your butt. Your butt is big, hairy, and stinky. Nobody likes your butts. If you want to move things forward, you want to yes and it starts with the point leader. God always raises up one man or one woman with the vision to carry the ball as the quarterback. Whether it's Moses or King David or Jesus or Peter or Paul. You need a Mosaic leader, someone who will champion the vision, who will rally the troops, who will take the shots, who will be a yes and optimist. Optimism is not being naive. Optimism is being a leader. And when you're a church startup specialist, I hate the term church planter. That's such an insider church word. People outside the church are like, what's a planter? We are church startup specialists. We are entrepreneurs. All right? And when you're a church startup and you've got no money, no location, no budget, you can't just say, well, but if we just had this. Listen, you don't need resources. You need to be resourceful. You have God Himself. Our Father owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Yeah. Pray bigger prayers. Yeah. If you go to my blog, I just shared this past week, we opened a location in Midland where we set up and tear down. We rent a location, we got to set up, tear down our ministry environments. We got volunteers killing it. The hardest thing for a church planner is to rally volunteers to do set up and tear down. Any church planner who says, oh, we love set up and tear down, brings us closer together, they're liars. All right? So they're optimists. I hate them. So we've been praying for trucks. And God's not afraid of big, bold prayers. I think God is offended by small prayers. And so we've been praying for someone to give us a truck. I said, God, I need a big box truck to move stuff. And that's been my prayer for over a month. And what you know, a week and a half ago, I get an email from someone in our church that someone's going to give us a truck. A 16-foot box truck, and it arrived at our church last week.
Wow.
And I said, oh, the God, thank you. That's awesome. And it's like the Father, because he loves to bless his children. He loves to do abundantly, exceedingly more than you could ask for or imagine. Ephesians 3:20. It's like the Father said, hey, angels, hey, Jesus, watch this. I imagine God does that. We didn't get one truck. We got two.
Wow.
3. Someone gave us 2 free box trucks. The weapon we have in our arsenal is prayer. Acts chapter 2. They prayed for boldness. I'm praying that God would give you boldness. Comedians have boldness, calcium in the spine. You got to go out there and be unafraid to die. And number 3, listen, we need to accelerate church growth. Church growth, wanting your church to grow is not a dirty word. You should not apologize for that. Healthy things grow. And I know a lot of people in this room are stuck right now. And so I want to encourage you that everything you need to take a quantum leap in your church culture over the next 12 months, God has already given you. You already have the people in your church. They just need clear leadership and a vision to die for. You already have the money. You just have to be completely unafraid to call them on the carpet. Maybe you need to do 5 or 6 weeks on generosity and teach your people that you are blessed to be a blessing, Genesis chapter 12. A great resource. It will cost you a little bit of money to get it, but it's changed things. It's been a game changer for us at Life Church. Is Fully Funded. Fully Funded, which is from our friends at churchfuel.com and Joe Sangle at Enjoy Stewardship. It's like $100 or $200. It's video curriculum for the senior pastor, for your board. But it will equip you for increasing generosity in the culture in your church. Which, when you have resources, it allows you to reach more people far from God and accelerate church growth. A lot more of the techniques of improvisational comedy, such as there's a whole chapter in this book called Comedy-Driven Sermons, which would be helpful. A lot of these techniques for working with your groups, your boards, are found in the book, holyshift.com. Some of this stuff is on the blog, jonathanheron.com, for free. In fact, I'll give you a freebie. If you log on to the website later today, I think on the right-hand bar, you can sign up for an email. If you sign up for the email today or tomorrow, our team will shoot you a 10-minute video that you can share with your team. It's about the 5 dysfunctions of a board at your church, how to avoid the 5 pitfalls that get your church stuck. We'll give it to you for free. I think churchfuel.com charges you like $50, but I'll just give it to you guys. So just go to jonathanheron.com and sign up for the free email, and we'll send that to you. We've got like 10-15 minutes left together, so I just want to open up for Q&A. Any questions you have for me personally, or about Life Church, or about comedy, the book material?
The contrast between what's going on in Michigan and what happened in Kent.
Yes.
As you reflect on that now, from a few years down the road and a few years of healing, what's the big difference in you and in the environment, whatever? What's the big difference?
I made 3 mistakes, and I was a young 20-something who thought he knew it all. I was part of Acts 29. Love the theology of Acts 29, but the dysfunction of Acts 29 was teaching church planners to have swagger and ego. And I fell into that trap, and I had to repent of that. So the 3 mistakes I made in our first church plant: number 1, I teamed up with the wrong church planting organization. Was promised funds that never materialized. If you want to know the name, I'll tell you later, but I'm not going to say it because this is going to go on the internet. So I teamed up with the wrong crew. Converge is the right crew, by the way. 90% success rate with church planting, and they are phenomenal. I love Converge. Number 2, I brought on the wrong worship person. I brought on a young college kid who was subverting my authority. I didn't realize until years later. 3 years ago, he emailed me and confessed that he was talking smack behind my back and was short-circuiting the movement of God. And then the third thing I did wrong was I did not have confidence in myself and in my calling. So I felt like as a leader I had to apologize for every decision I was making. And comedians don't have time to apologize. You got to fail harder. If you make a mistake, own it, and people will respect that. But you got to try stuff. You got to stick your neck out. What worked 10, 20 years ago will not work today. We got to get the gospel out, but the methods have to change. And there's a reason why comedy clubs are thriving and churches are sadly sitting empty.
Can you just give a quick example of this start with a yes, like even if it's comedy thing?
Absolutely. So two of my staff are here. Christian Arndt is our next gen pastor. He'll be there with the books. Tim Nugent's filming this. He's our worship arts director. And so I'll sit down more with Tim with the creative side of, so when you have a message, you have an opportunity every 4 to 6 weeks to reset your culture. That's why you see churches doing message series. That's not to be cool and hip. That's because Americans get sidetracked by soccer. I'm a soccer dad. And we lose track of things. Church is not at the top of your people's to-do list. It's like number 10. Even though you're passionate about your church, your people aren't. So a series gives you a chance to reset every 4 to 6 weeks and get them re-engaged and create momentum. Andy Stanley says new, improved, improving. And if it's new, improved, improving creates momentum. So new is a new series, right? So I'll sit down with Tim and be like, okay, we're going to do a Christmas series, and our culture is going to be caught up with Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, and porgs. How can we marry those two? Instead of fighting the culture, if they're already talking about it on YouTube and Facebook, how can we join the conversation, ride the coattails? And so 2 years ago, we did Star Wars Christmas. And it was a silly idea where we rented out a movie theater. It cost less than $1,000, which may sound like a lot of money to you, but wait. So we said, okay, come to church any Sunday, November, December, fill out a connection card, your name goes in a hat for 3 tickets to Star Wars The Force Awakens. People are like, 3 tickets, I'm going to go to church. Sounds pretty shallow, right? People are getting saved left and right because we're sharing the gospel every single Sunday. People are giving us the benefit of the doubt. So if there's a crisis in their life, they know there's a church that welcomed them as they are. And that little small $900 investment, which was also a shared memory for our church when they went to the movie theater together, the local newspaper said, can we do a story? I'm like, okay. So Saginaw newspaper comes out. They said, we're going to do a story on church with innovative methods. We're like, okay, cool. And I said, is this going to be the paper anytime soon? They're like, it's only if we have time to run it. So they decided to run it. Ends up on the front page. It's picked up by the Associated Press. Goes national. And suddenly I've got reporters from the Washington Times, the Seattle Times, from USA Today, from Time Magazine, blowing up my cell phone because we're a church trying to reach millennials and we're not afraid to talk about Star Wars. We didn't compromise the gospel. People got saved, people got baptized. And that small financial investment, you can't pay for that kind of advertising. So you better believe with The Last Jedi, we're doing it again. Unapologetically. The only people that criticize are other church people. And we're not trying to reach them. They threw rocks at Paul, they're going to throw rocks at you. So we just train our church. Every time we're doing an outreach, we're like, you're going to see people on Facebook take shots at Life Church. People are going to take shots at me. Don't defend me. Don't even respond. Just hit block, hit unfriend. There is freedom in just ignoring your critics. Let's stay focused on reaching people for Jesus. Jesus was not afraid to talk about the current culture and to connect it with the gospel. And that started with a yes. Sitting at a meeting going, wouldn't it be funny if we married Star Wars and Christmas? Yes. And we could give away tickets. And we could have R2-D2 on the stage. And we could have someone dressed up as a stormtrooper. And it just continued from there. And we can have a station where kids can make lightsabers. That drew in people like crazy. They come into the church and they're like, oh, these people aren't crazy. Tell me about Jesus. And they get saved. Now we got a guy who's up on stage helping lead worship who came to our church because of the Star Wars outreach. That's Roderick. So that's an example of yes anding. Now, if someone in the room had been like, no, we can't talk about Star Wars. That kills comedy. That kills forward momentum. So you got to be unafraid to fail harder, to try and experiment. And that's how I coached it. When we started the second location, Midland, so we're just going to try and experiment. We're going to try and reach people who won't drive a half hour to Saginaw, and it may fail. And our people go, let's go for an adventure, let's try it. Because people want to be part of something bigger than themselves. But you as a leader have to be unapologetic, unafraid to start with a yes. Be proactive and get the naysayers out of the room. The loudest boos come from the cheapest seats.
Hey, thanks, John. I'd like to probe a little deeper on humor, not hammer. A lot of biblical texts have hammer in them. Sin, judgment, wrath,
Absolutely.
all of that. How do you navigate that?
Absolutely. So there's a time and a place to teach from Micah, okay, and Obadiah and Amos. There's a time and place to go into the Old Testament prophets. That's the summertime. Because in the summer, lost people are not going to come to your church. Only church people go to church in the summer. So that's a good time to do a deep dive. So you're right. But here's the deal. If I stand up on a Sunday and give a Roy Moore speech about homosexuality, I've just cut out a huge segment of the population that needs Jesus in their lives. And so Norm Byers, the head of Michigan Church Planting, his wife came to Life Church one Sunday just to check it out. And afterwards she came up to me, and she's a sweetheart. I love her. She goes, it was really cool, you know, a very diverse church. I think there was a lesbian couple sitting in front of me. I said, yeah, there was. She goes, at first I felt uncomfortable, but then I realized that's exactly who Jesus would be hanging out with. And I said, yes. I don't need to spend every Sunday hammering people on sin issues in their lives. I want to wave the Jesus flag and give them hope. And just as in John chapter 8, to say, here's the truth. I am your pastor. I love you enough to say, here's the truth. That you fall short of God's perfect standards. But here's grace. God loves you with what Jonathan Edwards calls an inexhaustible fountain of grace. And here's what that looks like played out. And over time, you will see life change. Evangelism is a process. Faith is a journey, not a guilt trip, we say a lot of times. And so I earned permission through relationships to speak into situations and into people's lives. Now, one-on-one, if they come to me for counseling, I don't have a problem going to the hard stuff. But I know my audience, so when I'm speaking in front of 200-300 people and they're going to be YouTubing, listen, you are in the Insta-media age. We went to Moody Church yesterday. We wanted to film something in the auditorium, and they wouldn't let us because they said, we don't know how this is going to be shown online. We had Bob Goff at our church 6 months ago. Awesome guy, right? Author of Love Does. Bob said, take pictures, but no video, because we don't know how it's going to be portrayed online. And that's smart. Hey, by the way, if the news media ever shows up at your church, or if you're scheduled for an interview, if you need tips, dude, hit me up. I will help you out, because we've learned what to say, what not to say with the national media and with local media, because they're looking for one soundbite, one gotcha. And so if we can help equip you with that, please contact us, because there's a way to make the media in your community your friend and to help amplify the gospel. So is that helpful? We don't shy away from we don't cut and paste the Bible. We just understand the seasons of when and where to preach things.
Let me just follow. How do you protect yourself then from picking and choosing in the scriptures and kind of avoiding the hard stuff? How do you kind of personally navigate that? I would think that would be a vulnerability for you.
This will sound like a churchy answer, but I just listen to the Father. God will tell me. Because my spiritual gift is the gift of prophecy. Not like I can tell you your lottery numbers, not that at all, but speaking truth. I'm a truth declarer. My secondary is evangelism. And so my normal mode would be to go all Christian apologetics, Josh McDowell on you, right? And be like, you're wrong, Pastor, I have a pornography problem. Well, zip it up, okay? Because we're not going to reach people for the kingdom with your pants around your ankles and Kleenex in your hand, okay? We got you met. That's my natural go-to. But I understand that there's people in the room who I probably just offended. 96 secret prayer, and the Father will smack me with the Holy 2x4. My wife, men, your wife is your greatest asset. People say, have you ever heard the audible voice of God? Well, for me, it's my wife, okay? And she'll tell me if I'm getting too hot or going too far for our audience. Knowing your audience. Now, if it's an audience of Christians, dang, we are going exegetical line by line. I'm an Acts 29 guy in that way, right? But if I'm trying to reach the lost at any cost, part of the cost is taking away my wants and desires, because I don't believe the church exists for me. I really don't. And that might be the holy shift that's grating against you. I believe that we are the only organization on planet Earth that exists for the benefit of the non-members. And we are a rescue organization, not a social club. And so I'm very disinterested in church politics and business meetings, but I'm all about how can we get better, how can we reach more people faster for the kingdom. We've got time for 2 more questions and then we'll close out.
Can you walk us through like a practical planning piece? So you're looking at a sermon series for next year, but at the same time you're going to tie that like to Star Wars, Christmas, that kind of stuff. Renting out a theater, obviously, that's going to take some planning, some preparation. So just for you, how does that look when you're looking at the next year, your sermon calendar, coming up with series, and trying to tie that to something that would speak to the law?
You want me to save you guys $200? Perry's going to hate this. Perry knows a friend of mine. He's doing a big workshop in 2 weeks, and he'll take you for a whole day for $200 how to do a preaching calendar. I'll give it to you right now. He's going to hate me. I'm going to erase this really fast. This is saving you a lot of money. You got to know seasons. Advertisers know this. They know when people are tuned in and tuned out. I know we're going to go overtime by like 5 minutes, so if you need to depart, that's totally cool. But this is really good stuff right now I'm about to give you, okay? So you look at your calendar. Right now is the time to plan for 2018, all right? Get yourself some strong Starbucks, get yourself a calendar, and look at what's going on. So January, people are coming to church. January 7th is the first Sunday of January. You are going to have a full Sunday because they have their New Year's resolutions. They think, I got to be a good person, I got to go to church. So you cannot phone in on January 7th. Start a new series. Talk about vision. Give people a big, bold vision for the year. Give them 3 specific goals that you want to reach as a church. That's January 7th. People are going to come to church for 3 or 4 Sundays. Then you're going to hit, so that's a vision you want to do. If you don't want to talk about vision, teach them about generosity and about budgeting, because they're now in debt. They've all racked up credit card bills from the holidays. Your giving will go down in January. That's going to be one of the worst giving months of the year. February, your giving can go up if you are talking about budgeting. Get them on Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, or if you want the poor man's Dave Ramsey, go with Joe Sangle. Okay? We've had Joe at our church. He's phenomenal. February, nobody's coming to church. It's cold outside. It's the Super Bowl. Super Bowl Sunday, don't preach. Get your youth pastor to preach. Okay? Seriously, take that Sunday off. Don't even show up. All right? Don't even try to do an outreach. Nobody's going to church Super Bowl Sunday. But that's the month you want to do your hot series. If you want to draw them in, talk about sex. Because that's when they're having sex. It's cold outside. There's nothing to do. I promise you, you're going to have babies and grow your church in October. We just had 6 babies in 2 weeks at our church. You're welcome. So that's February. March, you're starting to get ready for Easter. If you're going to do advertising on Facebook, that's the time to do it. Is in March, because they're looking at April 1st. April Fool's Day is Easter this year. So March is leading up, so you can do a series about reaching out to your neighbors. So that's your evangelism series in March. Get them ready with practical tools of how to reach out to people. And if you want some ideas and thoughts, hook up with us. We'll share with you whatever you want to know. April this year, April 1st is Easter, so people are coming to church. You got to preach the gospel. You got to preach the gospel. Palm Sunday, you should be preaching the gospel too, because they're coming. The recovering Catholics are going to show up. And so you got to preach the gospel during that period, and then launch it into a series the following Sunday, the second Sunday of April. Start a new series. On Easter Sunday, you need to take 2 or 3 minutes and explain to everybody why they need to come back to church next week, or else you'll have a 50% drop. So you take 2 or 3 minutes, tell them about the hot series you got coming up. We're going to do Star Wars in April. Give them an invite card so they walk out with something. Give them a magnet to put on their fridge. Give them a reason to come back the Sunday after Easter. Do your series. That's a huge attendance time all the way up to Mother's Day. Mother's Day is the 3rd highest attendance Sunday of the year. So you can do a big Sunday. You can either honor the mothers like everybody else does, or here's what you do. I would do a series geared towards men. Because those wives and girlfriends are going to drag their husbands and boyfriends to church on Mother's Day. So preach to the men. Give them a bigger vision. Preach a big, bold Jesus, the benchmark of masculinity, and do a man series all the way up until Memorial Day. Give away a grill. All right? Tell them every Sunday, put your name in a hat, and then on Memorial Day Sunday, instead of going off camping, be in church. You have to be present to win the grill, and that'll help bump up your attendance on Memorial Day Sunday. We don't have a big drop-off Memorial Day at Life Church because of that. Then June is getting to be graduation season, so you can do a series in June that starts to go more into a book of the Bible. If you want to do expository preaching, start doing it in June, because people are tuning out, going on vacation. Father's Day, you could have a bump if you position it right, but generally June, July, August, your attendance is dropping. That's where you want to go through the Old Testament prophets, or go deep into, eschatology, or sanctification. Do something deep and meaty. And then coming up the last 2 weeks of August, you want to get your people ready for school, for getting back into their regular drum beats. So take 2 weeks to talk about vision and evangelism. So at Life Church, we'll do a vision update Sunday. We'll say, here's what God has done so far. We'll tell some stories. We'll show some numbers. I'm all about the numbers. My staff will tell you, we track the numbers. Because numbers don't lie. They tell you what's going up and down. You look at your numbers for a year, and it tells you when people are coming to church. September, people are coming to church. So you need a strong series for September that's going to hook them. October, you start to have it go down. So we'll usually do something that ties into pop culture. Last year we did Stranger Things. We recreated the set of Winona Ryder's house up on our stage. It was awesome. I think the photos are online. The year before that, we did The Walking Dead. And you may be like, we can't do The Walking Dead. Listen, dead people coming to life, that's kind of our thing as Christians. All right? And people are like, oh wow, they're talking about The Walking Dead at church, and they will come to church. And we don't show clips of the TV. They're already watching it. You don't need to preach against it. Talk about Lazarus, right? And then November, talk about family or kids. Give them something practical. So how to win in their relationships, or we're going to do a kids series, Awesome Parenting 101, how to raise a young Jedi. Because they're starting to get ready for Star Wars. And then December, you have to do full-blown Christmas by Christmas Eve. So what we're going to do, we're doing something different this year. Christmas Eve, we're going to do full-blown Christmas carols the whole night. You have to do it on Christmas Eve. You got to preach the gospel on Christmas Eve. You got to take 3 minutes to explain why they got to come back on January 7th. But the Sundays leading up to it, we're actually going to focus on generosity and year-end giving. We've never done that before, so we'll see how it's an experiment for us. We're going to spend 5 weeks really talking about what it looks like to be sacrificial givers, because that year-end giving, you can get 30% of your annual nonprofit budget. Is that right, Nate? 30%? During that final week, there are people in your church who will write one tithe check a year on December 31st, but you got to present the clear need why they should give to your church and not to the football club. So that's what we're going to be doing November, December. So there are